Okay, babe, here we go with chapter 17, which is women's haircuts. And the beginning of it goes into the basic difference between men's cuts and women's cuts. Men's cuts are more angular, whereas a woman's cut is more rounded and soft looking. When you cut a woman's hair, here, these 2 points here we're going to address, you want to keep it wet or moist. And you also want to take into account shrinkage. As a woman's hair, or all hair, dries, it shrinks up, and it especially shrinks more if it's wavy or curly hair. So when you're cutting it, you want to leave it a little longer than you intend it to be when it's dry, because it will shrink up as it's drying. Hair cutting is made of 4 basic cuts. You've got blunt cut, graduated cut, uniform layered, and long layered. And these basically change by elevation. Your blunt cut is your zero cut, where you are leaving all the hair at the end where it hits, how it hangs. It all appears to be one length, but I think that's really all it says. Whereas you can see here, it all appears to be one length, when in reality, the top hair here is really long because it's got to go from the top of that to the bottom, whereas the underneath hairs are shorter because they go from underneath just to down here. So it appears to be all the length one cut, and this is your blunt cut, zero blunt cut, where it all appears to be one length. And here's a good picture. You can see the hair that comes out of the top of her head is that long, whereas the hair that comes from underneath is only that long. But it appears to all be the same length, and that is your blunt cut. The preparation for all cuts is that you wash your hands, conduct a consultation and hair analysis. So I guess that's where you are going to look at the client, what kind of hair they have, and what their needs are. You're going to put a drape on the client and shampoo them. Then you're going to towel dry and drape them for their haircut. You want to leave the hair wet, so you're just going to towel dry so it's not dripping. Here's nothing really on the graduated cut, but this is where you hold the hair at 45 degrees. Notice it's the same preparation. Wash your hair, client consult and analysis, drape and shampoo, towel dry and drape for cut. But your 45 cut is where you hold the hair out at that 45-degree angle and cut it, and it comes out like that. Your uniform layered cut is when you hold the hair out at a 90-degree angle, like here. And all the strands are cut to the same length from the growth source, so they'll appear in layers. 90-degree uniform layered cut. So you're holding it all out like this, and you're going to cut each strand the same length. So if the top piece is 3 inches, the bottom pieces are 3 inches. And of course, then when they fall, they will fall into, depending on where they are coming out of the scalp. So uniform layered cut, 45-degree angles, and it'll give layers. Long layered cut, 180 degrees, where you hold the hair out at 180 degrees, and it is it produces long layers. Long layered cut, 180. Long layer, 180. Just remember that. Long layers, 180. Uniform layer, 90. Blunt, 0. Uniform layered, 90. Long layer, 180. Different cuts. Curly hair. Ooh, this is fun. Depending on the amount of curl, cutting the hair, parting it in the trough, which is where it kind of dips down, that's the trough, may cause the hair to flip out from the head. So you kind of want to cut it after the crest, which is the crest would be the top of the wave, as it starts to come down, and I'm assuming that will kind of help it curl or fall inward. Razor cutting. This is a technique that produces an angle at the end of a hair, and you can kind of see here where you have a shear cut and razor cut strands. It allows for more movement and visual separation than a shear cut. Shears are the scissors. And then here's kind of some examples of that. Razor cutting at a 45-degree angle. Texturizing techniques can be used to remove excess bulk. That would be like me with the thick hair. I get that done where it removes hair. Or conversely, it could be used to add volume, create movement, create wispy and spiky effects. Most common texturizing techniques are point cutting, notching, slithering, slicing, and carving. And we're going to go through some of those. Especially carving. Carving, which is this picture here, is a version of slicing that creates separation in the hair. The shears are moved throughout the hair with an opening and closing movement that carves out a section of the hair. I'm hoping you know more about that, because opening and closing to me just seems like what you would naturally do with scissors. Open and close it. Carves out a section of the hair. Finger waves. Process of shaping and directing the hair into an S-shaped pattern through the use of fingers, comb, and setting lotion. Blow drying. You want to make sure that you distribute the style throughout the hair and comb the product through to the ends. Thermal waving. This would be thermal is heat, so using heat to make curls. Two important factors to consider when creating curls with a curling iron. The first is the barrel size. The round part of the curling iron, the barrel, will determine the size of the wave. And the second is the projection that the hair comes from the scalp. Do you pull it straight out, at an angle? How do you curl it? Off base. 3 bases of thermal and rolling setting. On base, half off, off base. Off base is this figure here. It gives for less volume. And it means that the roller is completely off the base. The hair is held at a 45-degree angle from the head and then rolled down. Hair pressing. Temporarily straightens extremely curly or hard to manage hair, and it's either a hot iron or a pressing comb. And then there is pressing comb directions in here. Here it is. It looks kind of like it's rounded comb here. It's got like that rounded side. But when you're using a pressing comb, you kind of take a subsection away from the scalp and insert the teeth of the comb into the top side of the hair, pull it, draw the comb slightly, and then you're going to turn it back so that the hair actually, you can see here, it presses against that rounded part of the comb, and that actually presses it straight. And then there's Mila. Okay, so that's chapter 17. Whoop, whoop!